Another former colleague from the ambulance service, who is sadly no longer with us, told me the following story one day. John had been visiting his sister, who lived in a small cottage just outside Cork, Ireland. Having arrived at his sister's cottage quite late on the evening due to his travel plans not going quite as expected, he was ushered through to the kitchen, where he was fed with soup and a glass of Guinness. The kitchen was dimly lit, and the main source of light was the flames from the open fire in the dining area of the kitchen. John, having already partaken in drinking sessions along his prolonged travels from Birmingham to Ireland, was self-admittedly worse for wear. He recalls being shown to the cottage's spare room, and before he dropped off, he thought he saw a black shadow slowly swaying in the corner of the room. He was in no shape to concern himself with this, and in no time at all was fast asleep. The following day he spent with his sister, catching up and sightseeing around the local area. His sister had arranged a meal at home in the cottage on the evening. As the evening set in, John recalled that although his sister's cottage had all mott cons, she preferred candlelight and the light from the open fire. It was around 5 p.m. in the evening, and it was already dark outside, so the already fully roaring fire was welcome. John's brother-in-law returned home from work, and they all sat down at the dining table to eat. Following a heavy meal, John recalled how they retired into the main room in the cottage, where the open fire, with a few candles dotted around, gave an ambient light. A short while later, John was settled into a deep armchair, and although tired from the large dinner he had consumed, swore that he was alert, and had not touched an alcoholic drink since the previous night. His eyes were attracted to a shadow on the wall around the fireplace. With an inquisitive stare, he watched the shadow. It was sort of person-shaped, but initially remained still, and he immediately recalled the shadow from the first night in his room. Just as John was rationalizing the shape on the wall, it moved. John jumped. John's sister and brother-in-law laughed as John stood up and watched the shadow disappear into an old doorway, which in years gone by would have been to another room of the cottage, but was now the cottage next door. John, still standing with a startled look on his face, turned to his sister. His sister explained that these shadows were a very regular occurrence in the cottage, and that they were harmless. It took John a few days to become used to these shadows, but eventually he did. He did, however, add that the swaying shadow that watched him sleeping made him uncomfortable.